classic fairy tale, Thumbelina. Once there was a tiny little girl who was born out of a beautiful flower. She was as long as a thumb, so everyone called her Thumbelina. One night, as Thumbelina lay fast asleep, an ugly old toad saw her and thought how pretty she looked. He carried Thumbelina away to his son. "This lovely little girl will make a good wife for you," he said. Thumbelina woke up in the morning in the ugly toad's house. She was very frightened and started to cry. "I don't want to marry an ugly toad." Some fish swam by and heard Thumbelina crying. They said, "How can such a pretty girl marry an ugly toad?" So they decided to help her. The fish gnawed away at the stem of the lily pad on which Thumbelina was sitting. Then they pushed the leaf far out of reach of the ugly toads. One day, a passing beetle saw pretty little Thumbelina sitting on the lily pad. He flew down and carried her away with him. The beetle carried Thumbelina to the forest, seated her on a tree stump, and then flew away to find some food. Thumbelina seized the opportunity to escape. The brave little girl ate honey for food and drank dew to quench her thirst. When she was tired, she lay down on the ground with a leaf as a blanket. One night, Thumbelina was very hungry. She crept into the house of a field mouse, hoping to find something to eat. The kind-hearted field mouse not only gave Thumbelina lots of yummy food, but also invited her to stay. Every day, Thumbelina sang beautiful songs and danced for the field mouse. They were very happy together. One day, a guest came to visit the field mouse and Thumbelina. He was an old mole who wore a hat and carried a cane. Thumbelina warmly welcomed the mole and cooked delicious food for him. Mr. Mole fell in love with her, but he didn't say anything. The field mouse guessed Mr. Mole's feelings, so she asked him to take Thumbelina to his house. At the door of Mr. Mole's house, Thumbelina saw a swallow who was frozen stiff. Taking pity on the poor swallow, Thumbelina held him in her arms, trying to warm him up. At last the little bird came to life. The swallow thanked Thumbelina for her kindness. When he found out that she didn't want to marry Mr. Mole, he carried her on his back and they escaped. Flapping his wings, the swallow flew south to where it was lovely and warm. The swallow and Thumbelina arrived in the south, where beautiful flowers bloomed everywhere. The Prince of Flowers welcomed them warmly. To Thumbelina's surprise, the prince was as tiny as she was, and she fell in love with him at first sight. Together they waved goodbye to the kind swallow. To Thumbelina's joy, the prince loved her too. He put a crown on her head and made her the queen of flowers. Just then, a group of flower fairies flew out of the flowers. They danced happily around the prince and their new queen. If you like my video, don't forget to like and subscribe.